Ding. Welcome to Noon Rotary. Today we have a special guest, Gayle Noakes. Is that right? She'll be speaking to us shortly. Let's start out with invocation, and Josh is going to take care of it today.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Lord, thank you for bringing us together today, friends, virtually as well as in person, some of us. Thanks for the food and thanks for the fellowship, everything you do, and bring us strength through these times and continue to push us forward. Amen.
Amen. You can turn to the flag and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The things we think, say, and do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
I'm going to turn it over to myself now. Anybody got any happy bucks? Happy bucks? Happy bucks. Happy bucks?
I'll do a happy buck.
You're on.
Am I on? Awesome. Well, I'm first of all happy to be here today because I haven't been at very many meetings in the last few months. So that's the first happy buck. Second happy buck, probably going down to Madison to visit my daughter this weekend. And looking forward to that. And the last happy buck, to see that things are happening on the river dug is very exciting. And so happy buck for Zach, who's keeping things rolling in a very challenging environment. So 3 of them.
3. Gotcha. Anybody else in Zoom or live land? What is happy today? Any announcements at all? Anybody got anything to say? As far as the river dunk goes, we're all on track. The only problem is we're waiting for the website to let us be able to set it up until we get our 501c3 thing back from the state. We can't actually start that, so we're working on that. We have a dollar raffle today. If anybody's interested in a dollar raffle, we got a gift card to the best restaurant in Hudson, Perkins. Grab your dollars. Ready? All right. 4. Number 4. Ace, be a 1.
Put that card back, Ross.
I'm out.
Oh, that's not.
Everybody out?
Everybody out? All right, keep them then. Hang on to them. Still going, still alive.
Did
8.
I'm out.
Joni and Isaac.
Who's still on out in
I'm
Zoom
still
land?
in.
Ryan. All right,
Ryan's in? Okay.
10.
0.
I'm out.
I'm in.
Go. Isaac's the big winner.
Well, excellent.
I should have taken your dollar.
We have a Rotary menu or anything, or just want to?
No.
And we pay in
I'm gonna
Bitcoin.
turn it over to Isaac. I'm gonna turn it over to Isaac to introduce our speaker.
Oh, hey, Ross, I have a quick announcement. Can I just do it real quickly? I forgot. On the mayor's Golden Rule Initiative, the panel was announced yesterday, and it's in addition to Mayor Rich O'Connor, Chris Wood, I think of Hudson Daybreak Rotary, Shelley Tugas. I don't know if I pronounced her name correctly. I think she's an author. Chris Cost of the YMCA and Hudson Daybreak, Pastor Larry Zyman, Pastor Kendra Grams, Pastor Dawn Jeffries Ramstead, Judy Freund, who's past district governor, and Pam Brokaw. So a lot of Rotarians in that group, which I think is good news. And we're trying to set up a meeting in the next 2 weeks, our first meeting. I'll report to you on that as it goes along. Thank you.
And Joel, as an addendum, Shelley Tungus is the executive director at the Hudson Library.
Thank you, Isaac.
Well, our guest speaker, Gayle Noakes, has worked in a variety of industries and roles over her career. She spent 18 years in several manufacturing companies. Gayle was also the chief learning officer and a principal for Clifton Larson Allen, a national accounting and consulting firm, for 14 years. Throughout her career, Gayle has facilitated and instructed individuals and groups in leadership development, coaching, team design and development, group improvement processes, and etc. Gayle holds a Master of Arts degree in Human Resources Development and a certificate in Organization Development from the University of St. Thomas. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree from St. Olaf College. Gayle has been a Rotarian with the Minneapolis City of Lakes Rotary Club for 17 years. She served her club as president and has held several board positions. She served Rotary District 5950 as the visioning chair for 10 years after being trained by Hudson's very own Steve Wilcox. Here to share more about leading meetings that people want to attend is Gayle Noakes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. I always enjoy speaking at Rotary meetings since I have been one for a long time, and appreciate that very much. We are going to, first I'm going to share my screen so you can, it says the host disabled sharing the screen, Isaac. So I'll talk till we get
You're good, Gayle, go ahead.
I'm good now. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay. So as Isaac mentioned, I've had a long career and again, also been in lots of Rotary meetings. And after years of being in meetings, I decided there has to be a better way. So I created this workshop because of all the meetings I have sat in that really went nowhere. And I assume you've probably had that same experience. So what I would like to do today is cover just a couple of highlights that people in my workshops have found particularly valuable. And these characteristics that we're going to talk about apply in person and virtual. So if you're back to or able to run in-person meetings, or someday, hopefully we get back to those in general, and or virtually, these will work. And Isaac and I are going to work together to try to demonstrate, model a couple tools you can use in Zoom that you may or may not know to practice as well. So as we go along, please feel free to ask questions. Isaac said he would keep an eye out for anybody who has a question and let me know. Otherwise, we will move forward. So again, jump in when you would like to share. I always like to start with learning objectives. These are the 3 key things that I'm going to at least touch on each of these. First, which often surprises people, but decide if you should have a meeting. I think we've just gotten into a habit of something has to be done, so we have to have a meeting. And do we really? Next one is to set the meeting up for success. I'm going to hit a couple highlights on that. And then getting meeting members involved in owning the outcome. We're going to do a little activity on that. There's lots of ways to do that, but I want to share one that I've used over the years that has been very successful. And you know, hopefully this isn't what you've experienced, but I think in past meetings, we probably haven't actually put our head down on the table, but we probably wanted to. And hopefully we haven't been the person in front putting everybody to sleep. But some of the things that I'd like to share hopefully make this not happen anymore. So the first thing I'd like to do is find out from you some of the key challenges you face with meetings. And if Isaac had a few minutes to set this up for me, we're going to use the polling process. Raise hand, how many of you have used the polling? So this will have to be the people on your computer. Good, a few of you have. So thank you, Isaac. Just go ahead and choose one of those 7 items. Just click in the circle of what you think of these items is a key challenge for holding an effective meeting. And then you can go ahead and submit on the bottom. Is everybody done? Okay.
We have 5 of 7, two haven't voted yet. They've probably fallen asleep. Nope,
Okay.
6 of 7.
Okay, let's go ahead and show the results. Awesome. Okay, so our 2 big winners are the wrong people in the meeting and unclear who and how we're going to make decisions. A couple of other ones are no meeting objectives and no meeting preparation. Awesome. So we're actually going to cover a little bit of all of these in our talk today, but I'll focus on those particularly. So great. Thank you for doing that. Again, that's a easy way to get people involved in your meetings is to do a poll like that. So first question is, we need to decide if we should have a meeting. Like I said, often I think we just get in the habit of having meetings, but what is a meeting anyway? To me, what it is we have some kind of current situation. Maybe customers unhappy, maybe our revenue is not what it should be. We have some kind of current situation, and what we're trying to get to are desired results, something that we want to accomplish. And the first question is a meeting really the right vehicle to take us there? So that's the way we should first think about, is a meeting, or are we ready? A meeting might be part of it, but it isn't usually the whole answer. So what would your desired results be from a meeting if you choose to do that? Typically, it's one of 3 things. You either want to share some information, you want to gather some information that maybe you don't have, or you want to make a decision, either with input or with a group of people. So there's really mostly 3 kinds of meetings. One is that information sharing meeting, which is typically one person kind of up in front and doing a data dump, or just doing a one-way conversation, just sharing a whole bunch of stuff. My opinion is most of the time that is not a good use of a meeting. Those kinds of things, we have email, we have other ways to get out information. Meetings, taking the time to bring people together, to me, should be because everybody in the meeting has something to contribute. So the other 2 that I think are more important is gathering information. If each person is bringing things others don't know, and then making a decision. Again, I think meetings should be put together to accomplish something, not just to share information. So let's say you had that conversation, you had that thought about current situation, desired results. You decide, yeah, we need to have a meeting, and we're going to focus mostly on the decision-making meeting. And so next thing is, how do we set this up for success? What are some of the things that we need to do to set this up for success? And one of the key things that I believe is one of the key ones you picked is who's making the decision anyway? You know, do we know that? So let's talk about that. With this little grid, there's really, when you're a leader and you're with a group, there's 4 different scenarios for making a decision. The lower right, you really don't need a group. You don't need a meeting. You're a leader, you have the information you need, you just make a decision. Upper right-hand corner, you may need some information or you'd like to get some feedback from your team or others. And you say, you know, I'm still going to decide, but let's talk. I'd like to get some of your feelings and your thoughts about it. Upper left-hand corner, you think about, let's talk together, and actually the group is going to decide. So as the leader, the group and you are going to decide together. And the last one, actually the group decides without you. And I'll give you a little example on that one, because that one usually kind of throws people. One situation when I was the chief learning officer at Larson Allen, I had a learning and development team, and we were hiring a person, and we'd all interviewed the individuals, 2 individuals. And I really wanted to hire one person, and my whole team wanted to hire the other person. And we talked about it for a little bit. And, you know, I really sat back and thought, you know, hiring people is just not my main skill. And we all are going to have to work with this person. So I backed off and I said, you guys decide. I'll support whoever you decide, but you decide. You're better at this than I am. And so they did. Of course, they picked their person, and that person, 15 years later is still there, and she's phenomenal. And so sometimes it's better if we as leaders don't even get in the decision process, but of course, then we have to support it. Now, some people ask me, well, which of these are the right way to make a decision? And depending on the situation, they're all the right way. The key that I feel is if you're working with a group, the most important part is to tell them up front, maybe sometimes even before you have the meeting, who's making the decision. I've had situations where leaders say, you know, I just need some input, but I really have to make this decision myself. Totally fine. Just tell people that, you know, as you even invite them, say, I've got this decision to make. I'd really like your input. And then, you know, I'll make the decision, and people are more than happy to give you information and give you their opinion and what their thoughts are. And of course, it's still important that you go back and tell them what you decided. So, so all of these are right, like I said, in the situation. The key is to let people know who's going to be making the decision in each situation. I'm going to keep going. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. So another way to set up the meeting for success is a few things you do before the meeting. And I find a lot of people kind of don't think about these things, but setting up the meeting beforehand correctly makes a big difference. So first, and that's another one you picked, wrong people in the meeting. The first one is getting the right people there, and only the people you need. You know, the right people are people who have information to contribute, who are at a decision-making level, and you don't want extra people. I've often been setting up a meeting and somebody will say, well, let's bring that department in too, because it might affect them. I really discourage that. If people are in a meeting and they don't know why they're there, they don't feel like they're part of it, they're going to be bored. There'll probably be a distraction to the focus of the meeting. So having the right people there is really important. Next is to communicate the meeting objectives, which is another one that you picked. And that's absolutely true. First of all, you should have meeting objectives. which I don't find everybody does. You should have written meeting objectives as to what are we trying to accomplish in this meeting. And frankly, I always say if you can't write those, you shouldn't have a meeting. And then share those with the participants. They're giving their time, and hopefully you're asking them to be prepared. They should be able to know if they're agreeing to come and giving their time and effort, what you're trying to accomplish. Choose the appropriate meeting space and method. Again, I think that's kind of obvious, but especially these days, is it a meeting that we can do over Zoom? Or, do we have to get in a socially distanced room together? But making sure that what you're trying to accomplish can work with the method that you pick. Next one is sell the naysayers. And what I mean by this is sometimes we have a meeting and we're calling the meeting and we know somebody's really going to be a problem. They're really going to be negative about this. And the tendency is, let's just not invite them. The meeting will go so much better if we just don't invite them. Well, that doesn't necessarily work because if they're not invited, but they're part of implementing the solution afterward, they're just going to cause the problems later, and that's worse. So what I've done in several situations that has really worked is I've gone and talked to them before the meeting and really ask for, try to listen and understand what their concerns are, and then ask them to help me to be part of the solution. And it's really worked. I think they really value that you respect them to be able to come with them and take the time to listen to their perspective. Max time is an hour. To me, people can't hang in there longer than that. And then the next thing is to build a meeting outline, and that's on the next page. This is not an agenda. This is an outline that you want to do before you often even schedule the meeting to make sure it makes sense. So quickly, what's the issue or opportunity? Why are we even having this? Now what we're trying to accomplish, but why would we even think about having it? The current state. What are the desired results? What kind of meeting? Who should attend? Who will decide? How should it be conducted? And is there any pre-work needed? So it's really all the things that we've talked about, but it's a really good checklist as far as what are those things that we should be doing. And I'm going to move on. If anybody wants that, you can send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you. So the next part then is getting the meeting members involved and owning the outcome. And so that gets us to our other two kinds of meetings. One is to gather data, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Brainstorming is probably the most used. If you're more into manufacturing, you're probably familiar with cause and effect diagram, which is shown here, which is more what I call structured brainstorming. And then process mapping, which is where you really lay out every step in a process and analyze how it's being done and how it can be improved. Again, those are all very familiar pieces that if you don't know, you can go out on the internet and find pretty easily. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this because I really want to get to a decision-making process that I've found to be really helpful. And again, these are kind of out there and familiar to people. What I haven't found is people typically know how to get the data out, but once they have this list of information, often they don't know what to do with it. And that's what's critical. And I have found a number of tools. And the next one that we're actually going to do together is called a Bullseye Method. And the Bullseye Method is really good, particularly if you have like a larger group of people, although you can do it with a smaller one. But if you have a fairly long list of items and you need to prioritize them. So say people have a bunch of ideas and you want to figure out where you should start, what's most important. you can use this tool to do that. And I have had many people, I've done it with many Rotary groups and in the visioning process, and it has been really successful in helping people come to a decision and get moving in a very quick a quick amount of time. And everybody gets equal input. I've often told, well, the leader is going to step over, and how do you stop them from taking over and making the decision? This method puts everyone on the same ground. So we are going to, if you could grab a piece of paper or something to write on, what I want you to do is on the piece of paper, make these circles. I want you to build this bullseye. So just have 3 circles like any bullseye. The middle will be critical. The second ring is important, and the third ring is less important. I'll give you 30 more seconds to do that. Okay, critical, important, and less important. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we just brainstormed these 13 items. And these 13 items were the question of what are those things that you feel are make a meeting effective. Now, how this exercise works, and what I'm going to want you to do is you'll see there's a letter in front of each idea. One by one, I want you to take the first one, start the meeting on time, take that letter A and place it on the bullseye in the circle you think it is. If you think it's critical to effective meetings, put it in the middle. If you think it's important, put it in the second, and it's really not that important, put it in the third. I want you to take the letter of each one of these and place it on the bullseye. One caveat, you can't have more than 3 in the critical. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to build a little tally here, and then we'll come back.
Everybody need paper. Break my pen.
Please ask me any questions if you're not clear. Who needs more time? Okay. I can see a few people here. I'm going to call on you, and then I'm going to ask Isaac to call on a few people in the room. And what I'd like you to do is just tell me, you'll have to unmute if you're on Zoom, tell me the 3 letters you have in the critical circle. And sounds silly, but would you do it in alphabetical order? Because I can do a little faster that way. So Joel, would you be willing to unmute and give me the 3 you have?
For critical, I have B, define and communicate meeting objectives.
Okay.
D, have the right people at the meeting. And
Yep.
E, have someone take notes.
Oh, B was your first one?
B as in boy, D as in dog, E as in echo.
Got it. Thank you. Brian, how about you? You'll have to unmute. There we go.
I have B as in boy.
Yep.
I have G and excuse me, K.
All right. Thank you. Sean, how about you?
Apple boy dog.
Thank you. Isaac, would you ask a few people in the room, please?
I would like to pick on Joni because I saw her making notes back there.
All righty.
Can't see it back here, so.
Yeah, I think it's easy, sorry.
I'll go. BGI.
BG. Oop, now I'm putting G. And I. All right. Someone else in the room?
We're on the critical circle, right?
Yes.
I did A, G, H.
All right. Anyone else in the room? Okay, how about there's somebody else on the computer? Oh. I shouldn't have gone over there. Okay, well, you can get the idea. So you can see the tally. So if you're running the meeting, that's exactly what you do. Is, you know, again, you say maybe the group has brainstormed a bunch of ideas. And, you know, let's think about what would happen if you didn't use this method. You'd probably sit around and somebody would get on, you know, J and talk about it for 5 minutes. And, you know, when you run the tally, nobody even cares about J. So what this does is eliminates all of that time hashing through things. And what you see, which is, I swear, every time I do this, it happens. You know, you get a good listing like this where you prioritize. So B is obviously what your group feels is most important: define and communicate the meeting objectives. G is next. Make sure you have a meeting that you're having a meeting the way. Make sure that having a meeting is the way to get to the desired outcome. So again, what this does is, say these were improvement ideas or anything you want to move through. That doesn't mean you won't do some of the other ones, but we always have to have a place to start. So you'd start with B, maybe B and G, and you'd move forward. So I'm hoping that that you try this approach, because it really does work. It's very quick. I've done this with very passionate Rotarians that really had their point of view. And when we did the Bullseye, they went, okay, we'll start with B, you know, and it does work very well. And it allows everybody to own the outcome and gets more buy-in into moving forward. So thank you for doing that with me. So now I just want to take 1 minute, time for action. What I'd like you to do on that piece of paper is jot down one thing that you learned over the last 40 minutes that you're going to do in your next meeting. Just one thing out of all the things we talked about. Deciding if you should have a meeting, setting it up for success, who decides, the bullseye, gathering data. One thing that you're going to carry forward. So could I have a couple of people share? Anybody like to share?
Sure, I'll share.
Okay.
I mean, for large groups, the bullseye seems like a genius idea. I don't often have large group meetings like that, but that's the hardest part, especially in the digital environment where we're doing what we're doing right now in the Zoom call.
Yep.
Just kind of feels like the right way to sort of corral everyone and
Yeah,
that we're on
yeah,
this page, which
yeah.
is difficult in Zoom at times. So
Right, right. Good. I'm glad you think that. And what I did on the tally is it's under annotate, and you just build a text box. So I would encourage you to practice it because it's a little, you got to get a little used to it, but it actually works very well. Good. Joel, you had your hand up. Would you share, please?
Yes, I'm going to focus more on that. Should we really have a meeting? Because I noticed it was in one of your key teachings early on, and most of my fellow Rotarians, or many of them chose it. I didn't, on the theory that, gosh, we're going to have meetings no matter what. But I'm rethinking that now. Do we really need to have a meeting for this?
Yep. Great. Thank you. Who else would like? Sean, would you share, please?
Yeah, thank you. I like the idea of only inviting the relevant people to the meeting. I think we have a bias in the upper Midwest to invite people, even though they're not necessary out of fear of hurting their feelings.
Yeah. And if you'd ask them, they'd probably just as soon not be there if it's not pertinent to them. But I think you're absolutely right. Great. Thank you. Anybody in the room like to share? Isaac, you want to facilitate that?
I was going to say not inviting everybody. I know I have I'll add to Sean's point. I know I have a guilty trait of inviting everybody, just not to hurt their feelings. But I've probably realized that they don't need to be there anyway, and I don't think feelings are going to get hurt.
Yep. Very good. Anybody else? And I can't see everybody on the line, on the computer. So anybody else, raise your hand.
Joni.
I like the defining the objective, because that really tells who should be at the table, who should be in the room, who should be hearing, if the objective of the meeting doesn't have anything to do with certain people, they might want to know the outcome and what was said, but they're just there to listen. They're not really participating. And then you end up with a whole lot longer meeting than maybe you need to.
Yep, I totally agree, Jody. Yeah, those meeting objectives really help you, just what you said, decide who should be there. And yeah, just because they're interested in the outcome doesn't mean they need to participate in creating it. So awesome. That's great. All right. Well, anybody else? Okay, so will your people now say, if you use these techniques, that they love meetings? Well, I'm not going to guarantee that one, but I feel that these kind of techniques and other ones that are similar, what they will say, is we're moving forward and we did it together. People want to be part of making the decisions, and they do want to see progress. So if you'd like to learn any more, here's my email and my phone number and my website. If anybody'd like, or if you'd like to get a copy of the presentation, please go ahead and email me and I'll send it out to you. But with that, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask, or any stories they want to tell?
No
Everybody's
stories?
laughing, Gayle, so I think we all have stories, but nobody wants to share.
I'm sure you do.
Questions? Well, thank you very much. That was very interesting, and we'll all take
Yes,
that back to our businesses. And
thank you very much for participating. I appreciate that. Thank you.
on that note, if we don't have any more business for the good of Rotary, ting.